pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tricia?
Councilmember Matt Watkins.
Here.
Councilmember Bill Earl.
Here.
Mayor Bill Reinhardt.
Here.
Vice Mayor Rick Johannes.
Here.
And Councilmember Larry McCaffrey.
Present. Okay, public comments.
I'd like to make a public comment. Obviously, I've talked to you earlier. I'm here to voice my opposition to what I see as an over the tax spending on moving the city hall over to the police department building. Several months ago, the mayor and the vice mayor visited my office talking about transparency and open communications. I sent each of you council members 2 emails. The first over a month ago, and I received 1 response. And that was after I texted them twice, asking if I should expect a reply. Why bother putting your email on the website if you're not going to respond? Either you're too lazy to respond or just don't care. Either way, it looks bad for a public official. It was discussed by the city manager in the council meeting several months ago that the office was so dead on Fridays that he wanted to close it and only be open Monday through Thursday. So how did we go from having so little off activity in the office and being too cramped and distracting? It is not unprecedented to have 4 people in the office. For several years, there were 4. Jerry Hollister, David O'Rourke, Karen Smith, and at least 1 other part-time person. And this was before the computer age and the vast savings of space with electronic storage. This is a problem that you created by hiring an additional person. None of the similar-sized towns around here have the number of employees in the office that we do. The office for the city manager. While I understand this, when I asked Brandon how much it would cost to actually put walls up and enclose the office for him in this building, he said that they never got around to it, never priced it, the building was just too small. How big an office is needed? Security. Obviously, it's a big buzzword. The information flyer says there's no barrier to stop unwanted individuals from entering the workplace. But if you go right across the hallway, you can see there's a large counter and a door to stop anybody from going in there. If that wasn't enough, you guys should have fixed this before. I asked Brandon why it wasn't done earlier, and he said you guys didn't want to spend the money. Obviously, security can't be too much of a concern if you leave 1 person in the office on Fridays. I even came up with a no-cost solution to the crowded office and security. Let all the city employees work 4 days a week instead of just 2 of them. Put them on a rotating basis for their days off. So other than, let's say, a Wednesday, there will only be 3 people in the office, and that would eliminate the overcrowding and provide better security by having 3 people in the office on Fridays instead of 2, and when somebody leaves, just 1. Cost. So what are the benefits of the taxpayers of Bronson? Are we going to magically attract more business because we have a more spacious office? Are we going to suddenly get more grants because our staff has a bigger building? I'll give you one thing, if Bronson didn't have the problems with infrastructure that we do. When we have steady rain, several streets flood. You acknowledge the effort Jerry has put into keeping the water treatment plant going. Don't you think it would be a benefit to repair the roof of the building so it doesn't leak? Sidewalks right outside the police station are crumbling uneven with trip hazards. You have known this since you took possession of the building, and it opened last June, and you still haven't corrected it. I asked about the trail project, and was told that the trail project was waiting on an additional grant. I asked if we don't receive the other grant, what are we going to do? They said they probably wouldn't do the project. Why don't we use some of the extra tax money that we have to use that to put the trail in for the people of Bronson? I also asked about any parks, anything for the older kids to do, such as skateboard. Pat brought up about frisbee golf, and we're looking into it, which is always what most people hear from the city. We're looking into it. I read in the paper that Councilman Johannes said we have the money. I asked how much money Bronson is sitting on. I was told about $1 million. Disappointing for several reasons. Last year, the city approached the school to renegotiate what they were paying for the after-school program because money was tight. And to hear that you guys have been sitting on the money, lying about not having any, pretty disappointing. The second reason is with the infrastructure issues that need addressing, poor drainage of streets, crumbling curbs. It's not that we can't fix them because obviously you don't have money.
Time is up.
Can you give me 10 more seconds?
Yep.
Okay. To spend the money on projects instead of the new office. I just think there's better uses of tax money for the people of Bronson than a new office.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate you.
Any more public comments?
Did you want me to go now, or?
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm Rick Hollister, in case you don't know, I'm on the Board of Commissioners for Branch County. So I just wanted to run down, unless you guys have any questions for me, to start with some of our priorities nearby. We're working on renovating all the courtrooms over the courthouse. We've got the outside of the courthouse this last year was sealed up and buttoned down. We got a new entry door on the east side and got some heated sidewalk there, so it's a little safer. So they're finishing that stuff up on the outside, renovating all 3 courtrooms. Inside, the clerk's office knows we've got new carpet already, some of it. So it's kind of the last in line is to get the courtrooms done up. We did let it out for bids, and we're looking at those right now. We decided not to do a wage study this year. We have all 5 of our unions have negotiations this year, so we didn't want to mess up that idea with a wage study. Our new administrator, Frank Walsh, if you haven't met Frank, he's used to doing wage studies, not formally as if you would if you hired somebody to do a particular wage study, but it's not inexpensive either. So we elected to let Frank do the wage study and gather information. So, and I'm sure that'll apply towards the negotiations with our unions too. So we're going to do the wage study in-house. We are in the middle, or preparing for an audit of our books, 2024 audit. We do have a contract with Hillsdale County for animal control that's coming up. I think the last one was for 10 years, so see how that goes with Hillsdale County. I don't think it's going poorly for animal control, but maybe some input from how you guys see it's going. I'm not that familiar, with the inner workings of it, haven't been exposed to it, but we are going to look at that contract with Hillsdale County. Other than that, continue to push for the broadband to all corners of the county. That's our goal, is to make sure we get enough people into the BEAD grants and the original Robin grants to get us up to speed, so that all corners of the county, which actually were left out 6 months ago when people applied for the grants. You get out in Noble and you get over into California Township or Sherwood Township. Most of that was left out. So we think we have enough interest right now in BEAD grants for people applying for it to get the high-speed internet out into those corners. So I think that's most of it. We continue to talk to Life Care about ambulance service. We're now paying. Life Care is not just a membership thing. We're kicking in quite a bit of money to Life Care. Is that a long-term solution? Is there competition for life or for ambulance service or not? So just another thought there. I think that's about it as far as the highlights go. Unless anybody has any questions. Anything I can work on for you guys, gals?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay.
We sure do appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate you a lot coming. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a big job.
It's a lot more than I thought it was, but
Yeah.
yeah,
You do good.
getting out of it.
Any more public comments? Okay, presentations. Branch County Economic Growth Alliance, Audrey.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
You guys are all here to see me and are super excited about this report. So the Growth Alliance is an organization that I oversee that's like separate from the city of Coldwater, separate from our counties, but serves an economic development role. It's an organization that well, I'll just get into my slides. I will say before we start, this is kind of quasi a report of what staff do, staff being myself, and updates that are happening through industry just in general with or without staff intervention. So, and one of the reasons why economic development exists is essentially because communities need businesses, businesses need people to work there, and people need beautiful places to live where they want to raise children and families and spend their time. So a lot of the work that we do kind of revolves around how do we support businesses, whether that's attracting new businesses or supporting those who are already here. How do we go after funding to support strategic projects that are supported by the community? And what can we do to make sure that our local talent pool is meeting the needs of local industry? So here are examples of things that we are up to as staff. And when I say we, 9 months of this report is just me. And I've had one other staff person for the last quarter of it. So we do things like apply for and find incentives to companies that are specific to a project that they might be working on. We also connect them to other organizations like Michigan Works if we know that they have a certain talent need and that there's a program available to help them find that talent. I respond to something called a request for a proposal, which is anytime there's a company looking for space, or oftentimes in the state of Michigan or in our region, there's a long list of specs that they have to meet to land in a given place, and we help give them information about local sites that help them narrow their list of options essentially, and hopefully, in the right cases, choose our community to land in. Which means I also update site listings on a site called Zoom Prospector, which is what we use to submit sites to projects. We've gotten into the past year some educational forums for local employers that respond to a survey we did in 2023. We do site visits and tours with companies to do fact finding, to learn more about how they operate and what their challenges are and how we can help fill in the gaps. Fair amount of grant writing, tracking down regional data when it's needed. This can be very specific. Sometimes that's in response to an RFP. We've had examples of like, we need you to count the number of cows in this region, to we need you to find out how many graduates there are in a specific degree field based on the type of employees that we would need to hire if we come to you. And then special projects, and I also am the board liaison to Coldwater DDA in addition to the Growth Alliance. So this is just a quick housing outlook. I won't spend too much time here other than to say recently Branch County is the only rural county in our region that is increasing in population. So we are in a unique position in that respect. And our current unemployment rate is pretty, or at least in February, is pretty routine for the cycle that we tend to see on a yearly, quarterly basis. And then I did list a number of housing projects. Those do all happen to be in Coldwater where the largest amount of housing is going to be provided. So people who might work in Bronson might live in our community and vice versa. We do keep track of largest employers. I think another area that we could add on to this is employers who are growing the fastest. That would allow someone like Madsen Steel to pop up and be tracked over time. This is pretty consistent over time with my 6 or 7 years with the city and the Growth Alliance. Sometimes there are shifts when companies expand. We'll have an example of that in a couple minutes. Yes, this is just list. Clemens, of course, our largest and growing. Currently at 1,800 with projections to be around 22 once they finish their expansion in a couple years. So I made that big list of what kinds of things are you up to, Audrey, and this is kind of what that totals out to in a year. We try to the best of our ability to write down when we're working on press releases, when we're hosting workshops for employers, when we're writing letters of support for our partners in the programs that they might go after funding that we can take advantage of locally. How many times we're meeting with our regional partners or we're doing site visits, giving presentations or having meetings to try to show like, sometimes we are doing lots of things that don't necessarily result in a project, but we want to show that we are taking the steps necessary to provide support so companies and communities can make informed decisions, basically. So an example of a presentation that we would have done in this period is to the Small Town and Rural Development Conference. We presented on Coldwater is taking advantage of redevelopment-ready communities, which Bronson in as well. And you've actually beat us to a certification, so congratulations. And other programs like Main Street or Certified Local Government. Don't go too fast and miss something. Just a note on site visits, an example of a site visit. Last year we didn't have a ton, again, because I'm a one-woman show and sometimes that's a little limiting, but we were able to get Representative Walberg to our county and visiting Madsen Steel as one of the site visits that we made sure to take him on. I mentioned forum topics. So a little over a year ago, we started to host educational, we call them forum, call it whatever you want, lunch and learn, lots of fancy names for that. But basically, we did a big survey in 2023 of local employers and said, like, what are your talent needs? What are your gaps? What resources are you aware of or not aware of? And from that, we kind of started small with how can we improve this. The first year was really just focused on getting businesses more involved with program providers that already exist and they don't know of necessarily. So we did one where Michigan Works came in and presented on all of their tools that they have available to employers. We connected with the Career Center so that employers could learn about the opportunities that are available to them to influence local programming or serve on boards there. We did another one to learn specifically about how you host an OJT or a work experience for students. And then we did another one on something called an employer resource network, which is kind of a thing that you can purchase, basically a share in a staff person that rotates to your company a certain number of hours per week, and they can provide services that usually fall outside of your human resources staff, but definitely affect someone's attendance or productivity at work, right? So like, are they grieving? Do they need counseling services? Do they need to understand how to work? Be a better at personal budgeting, like some of these things that can be, awkward or not appropriate necessarily for HR staff, but do influence workforce participation. Finding childcare is another one. We don't yet have one of these because we don't have a critical mass of employers yet who want to participate, but we're working on it. And my personal goal is that we would have one in the next year or two, and potentially someone like me in my role could help track down or provide funding that offsets the first year of costs, basically. I mentioned partners. In partner meetings, we have a lot of them. So I kind of do a mini version of what a lot of these organizations do, right? Like I'm a local point person at the county level, but we've got people who are specific to different industries, specific to different programmings that we keep in contact with. That way when a company or a community calls me and kind of gives me the lay of the land and what they're working on, I can basically be a liaison and figure out where they need to go next so that I'm not handing them a list of 30 things and saying, well, they probably have it, find it. Right? So we're doing that for them. And also they're doing things for us. So similar to how the Growth Alliance at times provides funding to businesses in the county for various things and takes on projects that say City of Bronson isn't big enough to tackle or Quincy isn't big enough to tackle on their own. Southwest Michigan First is basically our regional version of me. And so they've tracked down grant funding for site readiness or for other things that benefit our county as a whole that we don't have capacity or the amount of funding for, but they as a bigger organization can do. Did I make that clear enough? Great. Strategic projects, we have last year about 4 strategic projects that we've either worked on ourselves or are participating in. One is the childcare implementation team. This is being led by the Community Foundation. They have funding through a funder. I don't want to get the funding source wrong. I think it's Kellogg. But essentially it's to improve the childcare landscape by reducing barriers to starting childcare businesses and increasing the amount of childcare providers that we have locally. It's a very simple way to do it. In among other things. So as part of this, our regional team, Pulse, did an assessment for each county in our region. Branch County, for example, 3.2 kids need a placement for everyone that's available. And you can bet your bottom dollar that that affects who goes to work and who doesn't go to work in a home, who's available for local companies, and kind of that difficulty there. So they're working with employers to figure out like what can employers do on their own? Can they provide subsidies? Can they provide flexibility? Can they just share information about childcare subsidies that are available? What can municipalities do? For example, there's a zoning audit that was done for Coldwater, Bronson, Quincy that says, are you making it harder in your local zoning than it needs to be for someone to start certain types of childcare businesses? Yes or no? And you can look at those types of things. So that's all about the very different angles of childcare and how to make it more available to local families. I've personally been told not to ever have 2 children under 5 because finding and paying for childcare is difficult. So it definitely affects people's decision making. Thrive Southwest Michigan, State of Michigan is doing a talent attraction campaign. Our regional partners did a Southwest Michigan version of that, and I'm the person that would be giving them data, giving them information about local communities so that the Branch County part of that page is up to date. And I probably need to edit that soon. USDA housing preservation grants. We had a CEDM fellow prior to you guys having Patrick. We had a CEDM fellow who in Coldwater that tracked down some USDA funding for single family home improvements. If I could really wave my magic wand and if we had like a half more staff person in the future, I would love to see the Growth Alliance be able to track down that kind of money that could be used countywide, not just specific to one community. That's probably more of a 3-year goal, depending on how we're funded. And then last but not least, site readiness dashboard. We keep lots of detailed information on sites. There will eventually be some grant funding that rolls out to help us improve the rating, essentially, of local sites so that they're closer to a developer being able to say, yes, I can do a project here. There are 1,000 reasons to eliminate sites, and we're trying to reduce the number of reasons, right? Project updates. This is more of announcements. Actually, just some recent projects that have been countywide announced over the past year. Small project in downtown Coldwater for a redevelopment. Many solar-related projects. Some of them similar sized, usually around 150 megawatts and 900 acres, depending on who's hosting it. And of course, a battery storage facility called Jupiter Power in the township. In addition to that, those are not big job drivers necessarily when they're finished. Clemens expansion is a job driver. Obviously, to go up from 1,800 to 22 is quite a shift with the 30% processing increase. So this is what's underway. I know we've had one recent ribbon cutting here, but these are the bigger activities that are announced last year. However, lots of other projects that are still ongoing from the year prior. Schmitz Foam is one, Osama Coldwater Manufacturing, both expanding, and Sekisui Voltec. Madison Steel is one that I really like to talk about. I think it's a really good case study of business attraction and economic development in general. We had, obviously you guys are very familiar with this, but you had a sale of land to a company to make that redevelopment work. We had a tax abatement, I believe, approved. You not confirm, right? We had a business development award through the MEDC that's tied to job creation that they have until next year to meet to get that full award realized. So very collaborative, kind of shows the different angles of whether it's city council doing something, the state of Michigan trying to do something to make that project come to fruition. This is also another reason why doing more site visits more often is good. We can talk to not just new companies, but existing companies about their expansion plans. I know it's been pointed out to me that because the Growth Alliance is kind of, I'll say, understaffed in a sense, we don't get everything early on, and there are companies who will miss out their opportunity to apply for incentives just because they don't know to ask, whereas a company like Madsen knew to ask. That is a helpful talking point. Questions so far? I know I'm moving fast, but I suspect you're not all here to hear me talk. Great. We also keep track of grants that are awarded. This is from last year. I think most of these are Coldwater specific. Sorry about that, but in terms of grant writing, staff do that too. Wanted to show you the budget for the Growth Alliance itself. Really, this organization only has around $56,000 to use every year. Most of that just offsets the cost of staff. That does not even afford one staff person technically. So when I point out that all of this report is kind of less than one person, that's why there's certain things you might think, why are we getting to it or not getting to it? And sometimes that's just the number of people that you have. I would love us to see us be a little bit more diversified in funding in the future. I think maybe a small strategic plan could help with that in the next 3 years. But this is how we're currently funded. Most of our funding does come from the City of Coldwater and the Coldwater Board of Public Utilities, with some participation from the county, the City of Bronson, and Quincy. So, questions here? Okay. I'm gonna skip downtown. I presented this for the city version because the larger, honestly, share of my job is downtown Coldwater focused. I will cover the Children's Museum because this does affect the entire county as an asset, but But since the Children's Museum relocated and expanded to downtown Coldwater in a building that the DDA owns, they have increased their visitorship by 130%, so that's a 2.3 increase of what they were doing previously. Similarly, with their revenue, they have a lot of new exhibits. We're engaging around 14,000 visits per year there, which is very good because they do a lot of educational programming and it is learning disguised as play. So, has anyone been there? Yes. Pop in just for fun. This Thursday, actually, downtown Coldwater is doing like a Main Street meetup for businesses, but if you want to come at 8 in the morning on Thursday, just so you can have a reason to go in, you're welcome to. It's a beautiful space. Can't help but show it off. And I guess that's all I have for you, unless you have questions for me.
You did a great job.
Speed. There's lots of things I could go into and don't. I don't know what you want to hear about. So. Okay.
Presentation.
Very good.
Thank you. I hope you're getting your $2,300 worth out of me. However much it is. Everyone. Thank you. Back to Coldwater City Council. So I'm going to.
Thanks, Audrey.
I'm so sorry. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Audrey.
Thank you. Thank you. You have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Consent agenda. Brandon,
Nothing to add to that.
do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. We accept the consent agenda as presented. I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, new business, approved purchase of back truck. Brandon?
Thank you, Mayor Reinhardt. At the February council meeting, we discussed the potential purchase of a vacuum truck. Initially, we were considering replacing our jet trailer unit, which typically costs around $85,000. However, after further review, we believe that investing in a vacuum truck would provide increased functionality and long-term value for the city. DPW Foreman Swain recently evaluated the truck for sale in Bluffton, Indiana, priced at $125,000. The unit is a 2003 Sterling with 154,000 miles. It is a well-maintained, recently serviced machine and features hydro excavation, hydrojetting and flushing, and a jet router, high-pressure water pump, and hydraulic boom. We believe that investing in this truck would improve efficiency while saving the city time and money. In your packet is a proposed or a projected cash flow for the motor pool fund through 2031. Lists all the scheduled equipment purchases we have over the next 5 years and shows you what the fund balance would be over time. I also attached to your packet a return on investment to show the financial benefits of purchasing a vac truck. This is a rough estimate without knowing how often it would be used throughout the year. It kind of shows the payoff time, which I believe is a little over 6 years.
Brandon, you didn't put in as far as the return on investment. We spend money every year on renting vac trucks for emergencies, and I think, Jerry, you have needs for vac truck on occasion yearly, don't you?
The lift station, wet wells, and the wet well at the treatment plant, all should be cleaned twice a year probably.
And with that being $500 an hour to have a firm come in, I think our return on investment is going to be much sooner than the projected, because we only used what our employees' costs were going to be as far as reduction. So truly, it could be quite a bit less, plus being more efficient.
You're obviously very happy with this one? From everything else that you've seen?
Yeah, for the price that it's at, I think it's a very reasonable truck. It's actually down at Brown Equipment, which they specialize in these trucks. They sell new, they fix used, they do all this stuff, and the gentleman that has this truck is got it there, it's being gone through, it's got new valves, it's got new hoses, it's got additions on it for wash down, it's got a new hydro line on it. It's coming with new hydro guns, with extensions, it's a very large tank. It's a 15-yard tank, which we might fill in a day. So it's not gonna be an 8-yard, run, dump, come back, get started again, run, dump, come back, get started again, 2 times a day. It's gonna be when we're off and running, we're running. So, the chassis is very sound. There's no rust on cab or the frame. The boom, I found some faulty spots and pointed out to the gentleman and he's gonna fix it.
What, if any, warranty comes with? Probably nothing because of the age, I'm guessing.
Got a lot of man hours with this.
Oh, absolutely. And when you cut man hours, that productivity picks up, so.
And that's what you need.
Any more questions? Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve purchase of that truck.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, D, merge pension discussion. Brandon?
Thank you, Mayor Reinhardt. Morning, Dart. Daggett is here from MERS to discuss our pension plan and discuss our retirement options as requested at the previous meeting. She'll discuss a few things and show you where you can find some more information, things like that. And this can be sort of an informal conversation, but if you want to, we can get you plugged in on your laptop.
All right. You guys mind if I sit here? So
Yeah, whatever you need.
although is that gonna mess up your camera?
No.
It's better to have it on it than us.
No. Let's not have me on it. I don't need to be on it. Let's see if that. Well, we'll start with the, your 23 annual actuarial valuation, which kind of shows what the costs are today, what going for your bill this year and next year, but also shows the trend over time. And so, to give you an idea, the city is currently 82% funded. If you look here, this solid blue line is if you'd been paying just the bill that MERS sends you, just the minimum requirement, which takes you longer to get up to 100%. You've put in additional contributions into this plan to kind of help out some of that unfunded liability from the past. So that's why you see this gap. This dotted blue line is where you actually are. The solid blue line is where you are. So you can kind of see the progress that you've made. The red line and the purple line are just kind of showing if the assumptions were to change. So we look at an assumption of 6.93 over a 30-year period of time. If they were a 5.93 or a 4.93, obviously where your fund would jump down to. Okay. The other thing that I'd like to point out, and I think you're pretty familiar with it, but then just the employer contribution. So this is looking at it as if there were no cap. So I understand there's a cap in place and we're adjusting that. But when the actuaries run these valuations, they always look at it as what would the cost grow to from an employer's perspective if there wasn't a cap, because most groups do not have a cap. Well, I mean, some do, some don't, but this is the standard. So you can kind of see that the contribution increase is coming over time. And some of that's just due to the fact that, but this is the rate it would be if you didn't have those additional funds in. So obviously it's not gonna go that high. That was the point, was to put some additional funds in to kind of lower that amount, okay? And that's obviously assuming that the market is perfect for the next 15 years. And so that is not what we're expecting, nor would we ever expect whether the market was up or down. But it gives us an idea over time. I know that there was a conversation around, so this is the breakdown of the cost. So for example, you see here is the normal cost This is what it costs by percent of payroll for each person in that division to earn another year of service. So the defined benefit plan is based on final average compensation times years of service times the multiplier, which is that 1.5. And so when we look at that and we say, okay, what does it cost for these people to earn another year of service? I was working here for 9 years and now it's 10 years, for example. So it's 12.4%, 12.45 for police. The employee contribution before the cap of the 14% that you just chose to do was going up to 17 and 16%. So some of that was to pay off the unfunded accrued liability. So you can see here, if you were 100% funded, they would actually be paying more and the city would have this gain. Obviously, you're not 100% funded. So what happens is there's that unfunded accrued liability that we're spreading out over time, right? You're 82% funded, so we're spreading that out over time. So that cost is 12 and 10%, giving it to be for this year for that amortization period of $96,454. So that's where we come up to those things. So we're adjusting that for this year to move the employee contribution rates to the 14%, and then we'll adjust the employer rate to follow. But I think the concept behind this meeting was the fact that when we're looking at this, we're still seeing the cost to pay off the unfunded liability going up. And so the conversation was around what do we need, what should we look for in the future, what do we want to do? And so that's where I would love to get some guidance from you. I'll give you an idea of, for example, cash flow, like you put in last year, let me go up just a tiny bit so you can see that. So last year you put in 54,500 plus another 57, so a little over 110. The employees put in another 100, so that's 210. But for retirees, they pulled almost 180 out the door. So that's that benefit payments that are going out the door. And so it's harder to catch up, right, if almost everything you're putting in is going back out. And that's just part of having quite a few retirees drawing on that as well. And so it puts a lot more pressure on the plan, right? If you're lower funded and you have a lot of people drawing, it's really hard to catch up from that perspective. And so that's kind of where the city's facing some of those challenges, to give you an idea of what that unfunded liability is. So you can see these are the active employees, what their total, if they were to stay till they are eligible to retire and retire when we're expecting them to. This is and live as long as we're expecting them to, which again, a lot of assumptions in here because human beings are not conducive to crystal balls, right?
Right.
How else do you say that, right? Then you have some vested former employees, meaning they're going to draw on this someday. They're just not eligible to draw yet. They're not age eligible, but they're vested, they'll get a benefit. Then you have those retirees and beneficiaries. So you can see when I say you have a larger, more mature plan, right? Because you have more people drawing on this plan. And so you see the total liability is 3.46 million with the assets of 2.8. Little over 2.8 million, that's where we get to that almost 82% funded. You can see these are the total unfunded liabilities, and then the surplus division, that's how much you've been putting in extra plus what it's been earning in the marketplace. So you're almost at a little over almost 460, leaving the total amount that we're spreading out over the next 15 years to be 633,000. So if someone wrote the check to the city for 640,000, you could pay off your whole liability, and they're really beautiful. So if any of you know friends, family, but that is kind of the magic number that you're kind of looking at, right? So.
Now, with interest rates going up, that plays into this also, right?
Interest rates, we look more at like investment returns, is that what you're talking about?
My point of it is, you people invest the money that you have, and when the price goes up, is that credited back to us then, as far as interest monies?
Meaning, do you get the earnings on your,
Because, okay,
I'm sorry.
as the interest rates go up and you take in more money off of that, does that get into the plans of
Yes. So,
What our percentage is?
so we look at, so here you can see your income, your investment income, so the assets and what they've grown to. Okay? So that's part of that contribution and what's happening there. So if you have a really high year, again, we smooth that out over time. So we do a 5-year smoothing. So 2022 was a really low year, 2023 was a good year, the 2021 was a great year. Oh, I did something. I talked with my hands, and I messed it up, sorry. But yes, so you get the gains and losses in the marketplace based on the bonds and the stocks and all of the different things that are there, absolutely.
That was my.
Okay, perfect. Sorry for me being slow, I apologize.
Any more questions?
Well, I think the biggest reason was because there was such an increase, we were looking at what other options are out there, I believe, right? That's what the whole question was.
So there are several options that are out there. It depends on what you're looking for from a plan perspective. So there are ways, so for example, we have, I'll go from probably the most impactful, both to employees and to you as an employer, would be there is a way to, for example, freeze the defined benefit plan. Meaning, Susie, I'll pretend I'm in your plan, right? So I've been working here for 10 years, I'm vested, I'm gonna get this benefit. But I've got another 15 years to work, okay? I'll try to remember the numbers I'm throwing out there. But, so if I have right now, you're counting me as part of this liability. If, for me to work another 15 years, if you say, you're going to keep working here, but we're gonna put you on a different plan, meaning it's not gonna be defined benefit, it's gonna be defined contribution, for example, then my 10 years are still in the plan as the DB. I've earned it, it's been accrued, you cannot take it away, right? That's protected under the state constitution. Not what you want to, right? So it's protected, it's safe. My next 15 years will be on this different plan. And when I retire, I'll be able to use both. Okay, but it's going to change this liability, right? Because this is planning on me earning another 15 years in that formula, which will now be different in a different vehicle. So it will lower the liability depending on the years of service. Now, if everybody's got one more year to work, it's not gonna lower it that much. If everyone's got lots of years to work, it's gonna lower it quite a bit. So again, the actuaries have to do census numbers and make those decisions, but just from a logical perspective, you can kind of look and go, okay, well, we've got a very mature workforce. I've had one group look at it and everyone was within 2 years of retiring. The freeze did nothing because, it did a little something, but really nothing because they were all gonna go very soon. For another younger workforce, it may make total sense, and sometimes you have a mix. So that's the most aggressive option, right? We're freezing this plan, we're going to this one. And what a defined contribution is where the employer puts money in. I'm gonna show you on our website. Not that, that was fun. So, any of you can go into the MERS website, it's just mersofmich.com, right up here. You don't have to log in. For the secure stuff, you have to log in, but you don't have to do it. So you can go right here to participant, and you can look at some of the information that we have here. So if you wanted to look at defined contribution, for example, it would give you some information on that, and I'm gonna pull up the handbook because it gives you a lot of data. So as you're looking at different options, I wanna give you a resource for you to find that information. Let me start at the beginning. Ooh, well, let's pause on this page that says death. That's very dramatic. Okay.
We don't want to start that one.
It's very fun. I don't think it's ever ended on that. So fun. I know. Like, how lovely is that, right? But it gives you an idea. Like, here's the formula. So the employer's going to put in a percentage of payroll. We'll just say 5%, 10%, whatever that is, right? Then the employee's going to put in payroll, so we do a match, whatever that is. Then the employee chooses the investments that they want to be in, and they may gain and they may lose, depending on how the market goes and based on the fees that are there. The good news in the MERS market, MERS portfolio, because we're a nonprofit or a municipality like you, we can give really low fees. So if you compare it, we're giving really low fees, so your employees don't pay very much because we have that group buying thing and we have, quite a bit of money in the market. Minus the fees gives them the benefit. So what this means is, some of you may be familiar with like a 401k. The rules are different from an IRS perspective as far as contributions and some of those things, but it's a little similar in how people look at it from a surface, meaning I put money in, the employer puts money in, I choose the investments, and when I leave, I have this pot of money to do with as I will, right? I can make it last for my whole lifetime, I can go to Vegas, don't dare, but I could. Do you see what I'm saying? You can do whatever you want, right? So that's how a defined contribution works. From this conversation, that means from a budgeting perspective, you're choosing, this is the percentage we're contributing. It's not gonna go up or down unless we negotiate it or decide on it, right? It's just going to be that flat amount, right? And that for the employees, again, same thing. They are then deciding how long they wanna make that money last, how they'll invest it, all of those things. With a defined benefit plan, right now, it's, again, as long as they work, they have that time in the formula, they will get this set amount for the rest of their life. They won't outlive that benefit. They'll always get that, right? The flip side of that is the employer then, or whoever's left funding the plan, has to account if someone, Susie Q lives to be 105, or if the market goes really crazy, or something like that happens, right? So there's always gonna be volatility. It just depends on who has it and how they manage it, right?
Now, you're talking, you can freeze one and go into the other.
You can.
Can you have both of those? For the fact that you can keep, because the rates are going up. If, for instance, I'm just gonna pick on Steve. If Steve decides he wants to stay in the defined contribution, he's gonna pay a higher percentage of his, whereas maybe Joe says, no, I wanna go defined contribution, I think, and then go. Can you have the two different plans available?
So they can offer to
Correct.
employees to
Yeah.
choose from. Yeah.
So I went with the most dramatic, right? That's the phrase, that's the all or nothing, right?
Yep.
Then there's what you're talking about, where we can say, as of going forward, our new hires are gonna go into this defined contribution. They're not hired yet, this is where we're going to. This is our future, right? This is where we want to go from that perspective. For our existing, we're gonna offer what's called a conversion, meaning I can keep my DB and leave it there, or I can have the actuaries calculate how much that would be present value and move those assets over to the defined contribution. So I'm not starting from zero, I'm converting those DB dollars into DC dollars, and then I choose there. You could also have an optional freeze, where we're freezing the plan, where new hires are going into DC, but we have the optional freeze, those who opt into it go to the DC, but we don't convert those dollars over. I'm gonna keep my DB where it is for those 10 years and my 15 over here. There's some challenges, there's some legal challenges to all of that. For example, when there's a choice, an employee choice, meaning for the optional freeze, then the courts say that whatever your contribution is now in the DB, it must be the same thing in the DC. So if my contribution is 14%, I must then contribute 14% in the DC during this time of decision, because you're not allowed to incentivize someone by lowering contributions to get them off your line, right? So it's the way the court's protecting people. Now, there's no time limit to how long they stay in that contribution. So you can say, we're all moving, you have the option to move over. Here's what, you're gonna move to 14%. And a year or two from now, we may have a conversation and say, we're changing our contribution structure and we can change it at that time. But it can never be a promise or anything to incentivize anyone to come over. It has to be an agreement at a later point, if there's an option. If it's a complete freeze, then you're mandating everyone over. So you can choose whatever contribution structure that is, right? Conversion, again, there's a choice. So those are some of the things to kind of consider. And if you were to look at something like that, MERS, our benefit education specialist, would come out and would do some education. So here's what it looks like, here's how it's gonna be, here's a window of time for you to talk to your spouse, anybody you talk to for financial advice, anything like that. We'll offer one-on-ones later if you wanna come back and ask some questions. What can we do to help make sure that they make an informed decision if there's a choice to be made? Even if there's not a choice to be made, we obviously would do education to make sure they understand what is changing, what's not changing, those kind of things. Now, that all sounds fine and good, but I want to remind you of a few things when we're looking at this. Not all of your liability, so example, if you freeze this plan and force everyone over, there is still unfunded liability.
Correct.
And there would no longer be employee contributions to cover that because they will no longer be active in the plan. Therefore, it is completely on the city to cover the rest of that promise. They will not be contributing to that at all. They'll be contributing to whatever new plan they're in. If we move to a conversion option where people have the choice to go to a defined contribution and some people stay in the defined benefit, there's no longer a MERS administered cap, meaning you can't say, well, employees are gonna all pay this, the employer's only gonna pay this and the employees are gonna pay the rest. Because you're going to a closed plan and a fixed payroll, so we will not administer an employee cap at that point. You can do the math on your own, but the actuaries.
There's a lot of options here.
There's a lot, and so that's why I wanted to show you all the resources. So I did want to show you, that is not what I wanted to show you. That's what I wanted to show you. So there are some resources. So when you go to the MERS and MISH website, if I go right here and I type in, it's called Your Partner. If you just want to type in Your Partner, it's shorter. It's called Your Partner in Retirement. But it's a publication that will show you kind of, again, where is everybody at? What are all the programs that are out there? What's the funding of other plans across the state? So you kind of find out where you fall. And what are other plans doing? So some have gone to a lower benefit for new hires, bridge multiplier, COLA, some hybrid for new hires. We've been talking about defined contribution for new hires, defined benefit plan freezes, and then obviously cost sharing with employees, which you do already, and then the voluntary contributions, which you've done as well. So those just give you an idea if you want some statistics. I wanted to show you some considerations. So this was a presentation that I gave at our annual conference that talks about like when you're looking at designing a plan, we're looking at what do we want for the future? We're looking to design a plan. So are we wanting it to be guaranteed income, variable income, or both? Do we want that piece of that? Also considerations of like, should it be mandatory? Should it be voluntary? Automatic enrollment, those kind of pieces. And again, what's the budget? What do you want to incentivize as far as increased participation? And then how's the vesting schedule work? I will share that as an example for those who are looking at, well, what's a DB work look like? What's a DC work look like? We took an example of a 30-year-old who's going to work for 30 years, retire when she's 60, live till age 90. Wage inflation is going to be perfectly at 2%, like we're assuming just everything's perfect. So just clarifying that, but so we can clarify things. And in DC world, she's getting a 6% return while we're working for the entire time, and when she retires, she's getting a 4% return. Again, and she's going to take perfect payments until she goes perfectly at night. But so that's Susie Q. This in a defined benefit plan, for example. So usually when we look at it from an income replacement, we're looking, what's my paycheck that I'm used to living on? Once I retire, what income do I need to replace to get to a certain point? So 80% is usually that standard. So when we look at that, a 1.5% multiplier, which is what you have here, is about a 43% income replacement for anyone. It doesn't matter what your salary is, it's just working there for 30 years, kind of thing. You can also get there Again, with between a combination of between 10 and 15% in a defined contribution plan. So in the end, a defined benefit and a defined contribution both give you income replacement. It's just how you proceed with that, right? And so that's the conversation that you have to have with your employees. What's important to them? Is it I'll pay higher because I like that guarantee? I don't want to lose what I've gotten so far, but I'm willing to look at something different. There's a lot of options, and it's something for you all to, I encourage you all to kind of get together and think about. Look at the resources that are out there, because it's a big decision. And so I'm giving you a lot of information. I'm happy to meet again once you kind of narrow things down of, well, none of us are comfortable with this, so don't even talk about that anymore, Marty. Now, we're interested in this, and so sometimes I have groups that'll gather questions from employees, questions from the board, they'll all get together, and we'll kind of combine the questions, and then we'll say, okay, let's focus on these, and we'll meet again. Or sometimes I can answer some simple questions over email, but a lot of these are like, well, if we do this, then this, then this. And what happens is when you all get together and decide some of those things, then we have our actuary run some numbers, and it shows you the impact of what that looks like. We can run some forecasting for employees if we need to say, well, Susie Q, we're not going to use anybody's actual data and show that because that's wrong. But the idea is, well, you know, Susie Q makes 30,000 and worked here 10 years or whatever, that this would be the impact, so that you guys have some information to make decisions. So I'm not here to give you a solution on a silver platter with a bow, but it gives you some ideas to where ask some questions, to look at some things. There is, if you go to the MERS home site, there is, if you don't like reading, or prefer not to read and you prefer somebody to talk at you, we have some video libraries. So if you're trying to understand how DB works, you can select by DB, and we have 20 videos out there. You can select by DC, and we have 7. You can combine DC and 457. Like there's lots of different ways that we can get to the package you want. And what you think will do from a recruiting and a retention perspective. Right now you're looking at retention, but you also have to look at recruiting and how can you stay competitive and make sure people understand the benefit that they have and what those salaries are looking towards. And that's a really big piece of that. So lots of resources out there. There's lots of videos. I'm available to chat. Tricia is right now. Get hold of me. So happy to help. But what other questions can I, or do you just want me to stop talking and you're ready to? I do that to people.
When this came up a month ago or a month, whatever it was, the conversation was what else is out there?
Yeah.
What other plans? So
Yep.
I think you've done a great job of showing us what other plans are out there. Now it's up to us to have those discussions and figure out what's the next steps.
We have a lot of young employees. It's a lot to figure out here.
So, and that's something that I think, you know, you want to get educated. So however you want to do that from an employee perspective, we're here to make sure everyone has the information and can make the best decision that they have. Because it may become an individual decision where you're making up, because you may get a consensus of like, well, some of us don't want the same thing, and so we're willing to make that option. Then there's a lot more decisions to make. Sometimes we look at it all and go, nope, I'm good, I want to pay this, I don't want attention. So it's completely up to you, but we're here to help and to make sure you have the information that you need.
That's a good question. Does it impact, they're 82% funded, right, on what the defined benefit plan should be funded at, if they switch to an employee contribution or to a defined contribution plan? Do they have to catch up that 18% to get that fully?
Not immediately.
Not immediately.
No. So it would still stay on the same amortization schedule you are now. And the amount would probably reduce, depending on how you do that. If it's just for new hires, that amount really isn't going to change because they're not on the plan, right?
Yeah, gotcha.
So it's just that consistent.
Depends on which plan they.
Yes. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Oh, perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate all the work you put into this.
Yeah. Oh. Listen on steps on Oh.
Okay, appoint Bronson Housing Commission Representative Brandon.
Thank you, Mayor Reinhardt. Corinne Weber has stepped down from the Bronson Housing Commission. This position on the board must be filled by a current resident of the facility. Ida Faye Ganger is willing to serve in this position on the board. Rhoda will serve the remainder of Corinne Weber's term, which is set to expire at the end of this year.
Just need a motion
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ganger? I think so. Ganger.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Okay. Approve amendments to ordinance number 222. Brandon?
Thank you, Mayor Reinhardt. As requested, staff has amended ordinance number 222, the golf cart ordinance, to include utility task vehicles or UTVs. This applies to side-by-side vehicles with a steering wheel and foot pedals. This would not include an ATV or any kind of off-road equipment where the rider straddles a seat, such as a three-wheeler or dirt bike. The same rules and regulations would apply to both UTVs and golf carts. They will not be able to ride on US 12 and must cross at a traffic light to get across 12. They must also have all the same safety features as golf carts and must be inspected and permitted by the city as well. Any questions?
That's what we discussed, keep the rate, the golf cart ordinance.
I make a motion to approve the amendments to ordinance 222.
Support. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Okay. Fiscal year 25-26 budget discussion. Brandon?
Thank you, Mayor Reinhardt. As required by the city charter, I have to present a budget to you before May, or in May. I'm presenting a draft 25-26 budget for your review. This project projects 1.77 million general fund expenditures and has a projected deficit of roughly 324,000. Budget includes 150,000 for local street work, 50,000 for major street work, 125,000 in non-motorized funds for sidewalk improvements, potentially sidewalk improvements through the MDOT Category B grant, which we'll be reapplying for. And also 175,000 for that potential Category B grant for Compton Street, which would include new curb, gutter, sidewalk, and lead service line replacement. Also includes 85,000 for materials to replace lead and galvanized lines using our crew. Wastewater capital improvement fund, this budget this is the regular budget, includes 2,790,000 for engineering, lining and grouting, point repairs and observation for the city's state revolving loan fund project to address inflow and infiltration as required under the city's administrative consent order. Excuse me. The general fund would also need to transfer 10,000 to the cemetery fund. The general fund continues to subsidize the cemetery as it does not generate enough revenue. For wages, there's a 5% raise included for employees, which after the increase in the MERS pension contribution would amount to about a 1% raise, unfortunately. This budget does not show the 25 projected budget yet, or projected fund balance numbers, as those will be completed as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year. Questions on it?
Yeah, I do actually, I'm sorry. From the email that you shared with the rest of the council earlier today, and taking into this consideration of what the projected budget is gonna be, I'm very concerned at what the hit to the general fund is gonna be. And again, I know your comment that you've said a lot of times, and to your track record and your history, yes, we've come out on a positive. You're not very high on that being positive. From the tone of the email that I took, and with that there, that takes out a good third, if not 40% of our fund balance in 2 years' time, which is very concerning in my opinion. So that's where I'm at. I know what you said, and I know, but we can't keep relying on it's gonna come out good on the backside, because what happens when it doesn't in 2 consecutive years? We're in trouble.
Well, so far, the track record has been that we've projected deficits, but it's never happened. It may happen this year, who knows? But we've got about a 10-year track record here of we've always come out on top.
All I'm saying is that this is for discussion. I'm bringing up my concerns.
And rightfully so, your concerns. I look at it differently because I'm looking at this long track record, and so far we haven't had that.
So let me ask you this question. What's your thought process on if it's a $200, $300 hit this year in the negative? Are you like, oh, it's a one-time thing? Or how do you process that? Because it's hard for me to fathom that it's a one-year blip, because I don't have that crystal ball to see what's gonna happen.
And neither do I. But at this point, my thing is, okay, if we take a hit 1 year, then we really gotta tighten our belt on, okay, why did it happen? What was the reason for it? And then we have to make the hard decisions at that point. We can't keep doing this. This has to be a one-time thing. Got to figure out how to make sure it's a one-time thing. When I was on council in the very beginning, back in '82, we had a sewer break. We didn't have enough funds hardly to cover that and payroll. And if it hadn't been for some people paying their taxes right then, we would have really had a problem making payroll. We vowed as a council then that would never happen again. But see, you're dealing in a lot of different accounts here, and then it was wastewater then that put us into the deep mine. We got out of that because we took care of the problems we had and brought us back up on our feet. It did not take 5 years or anything to get back on our feet, but if you look at our revenues that we have invested, wastewater's a lot healthier than back then because it wasn't fund balance. And a lot of other things didn't have fund balances or had to be rectified. At that time, there wasn't a motor pool. The motor pool has proved to be very successful as far as I'm concerned. So I'm saying, yes, we need to keep watch of it. And yes, Brandon has been really good at being able to make his projected budgets. And there may be some, in most years, it shows a deficit, but we come out on top.
Yeah, and again, your track record speaks volumes as far as what was laid out there, and I'm not discrediting that. That's why I sent the email to, I'm sorry, but some of the big long fund balances that send out and everything else, just, I want the nitty gritty, just give me where we're at. I don't need the transactional, that sort of thing, but I get why we're doing that, but, it's the knowing what because right now we don't know. And you're talking 600,000, could be, worst case at this point, right?
Very worst case.
And granted, that's worst case, but again, that is half of your fund balance in 2 years' time, which is very concerning.
But, and rightfully so, you are right. The first year when it goes, if we had a $200,000 deficit this year, we gotta tighten our belts to make sure that the next year isn't that way.
Just voicing concerns.
And rightfully so. I have no problem with that.
The other thing, and I get why we did it, but 5% on employee wages is high in this day and age, but I understand because why that is, that's why I think it's our best interest to give this other contributions. That's my 2 cents, sir.
Have 2 cents. Any other comments? Questions?
Good points.
Okay, approved construction engineering for lift station projects. Brandon?
Thank you, Mayor Reinhardt. As you recall, the council recently approved a professional services agreement with Prine and Newhoff for the design of the 2 lift station projects at Walker Street and Corey Street. The cost for the project design with Prine and Newhoff was previously approved for $42,000. They are proposing to do the construction engineering for the rest of the project for a not to exceed amount of $116,000. The city is also applying for an overflow sewer grant for this project through Eagle. The grant has a few additional requirements that will necessitate some design changes to meet the Build American, Buy American Act and requirements of the overflow sewer grant. These will be additional expenses that are not yet known, but it should be less than about $15,000. Avamarsh is proposing a cost of $208,985 for these services. In your packet, you have a summary of the proposals. Prine and Newhoff also includes bidding, construction, administration, and inspection services in that number. With such a large price difference, I'm recommending they continue to use Prine and Newhoff for the remainder of the project at a not to exceed amount of $116,000 plus the additional design work that I mentioned to meet the requirements of the permit, which, if awarded, the grant is about $1.3 million.
Are we concerned about anything when we're applying to these grants and kind of planning on these? Are we worried or concerned about anything that DOJ is doing and you do away with a lot of this?
We haven't heard anything from Eagle about that. They're planning on this funds being available. They might be available already. They just have to be spent. It's a good question.
Yeah, I think it's something to look into. Granted, I don't want to see either one of you spend a ton of time on a grant proposal when the funding may not be there, right? And I don't know how far down they're gonna go with spending and stuff like that. It's hard to tell what you read, what you hear.
But these are legal, it's in the state, it's not in the federal. These are federal dollars, but I'll double check, I'm pretty sure that they probably already have it in the state. Yeah, good question.
Any more questions or comments?
No, I'll make a motion to approve the construction engineering for.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. City staff comments. Joe?
It's warming up. It's kind of
For
nice.
Monday.
Yeah. We're finally getting caught up on the storm damage. Hopefully Friday doesn't turn into another mess. So we might learn line up the scope again. Yeah. So, cemetery cleanup went well. Rick was down, helped out. after the cemetery rule meeting and everything, I think a lot was taken into consideration as the way things are placed. What needed to go, what needed to stay, some very clear. So that went well. Starting to open up parks.
There was some discussion earlier, you guys going to a 4-day week or something to do this summer. Have you started that, or is that something you're gonna start? Or?
Yeah, I haven't started yet. More or less, the cleanup and everything, there's just been a lot going on lately where it just hasn't fallen into place yet because
I didn't know if you had a specific date you wanted to try starting.
I did, but it's done.
Okay. All right.
Things don't always work out.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, a lot's come up that wasn't planned and it's just, I think when the weather, we get out of the spring mess that we're in, storms and stuff, I think we'll end up start.
Sure.
Would you like to start this month still?
Yeah, I don't foresee it being a full 6-month thing. I think when leaf season gets close, we need to kind of go back to 5s because when we start to stuff up, it is a 5-day week job.
Okay.
So I would hate to have a 3-day weekend and come in on Monday because it's not going to be pretty. So, that's where I see it.
Nice. Jerry?
We got the clarifier drive order approved last month. It's probably still another 6 or 8 weeks out. Flows have really climbed. Just from March to April, they shot up 500,000 gallons a day. Or about 850,000 a day right now. Jeez. Water tables come up a little in there. The plant's handling it good right now. Hopefully it stays that way. As far as the plant handling good, flows don't have to stay that way.
Any other city staff comments? City manager comments?
Thank you, Mayor Reinhardt. Public Services contract for trash and recycling expires at the end of March 2026. I reached out to them, was informed that due to our current pricing being well below market, a renewal would involve an increase of upwards of 30% or more. Right now, our rates are lower than Coldwater, which is probably 5 times as many customers as we do. So we really got a great rate at the time. But we will be looking to issue a request for proposals this summer or fall to get competitive pricing from other companies as well. I had one of them already reach out to me. Patrick was promoted to assistant city manager, previously assistant to the city manager. I attached the new job description and organizational chart to reflect that change. And during absences, Patrick will be the acting city manager. And FYI, also included in the packet as well our grant history over since 2021. Just for educational purposes. That's all I have.
Thank you, Brandon. Council comments, Larry? I was gonna start at your end this time.
Patrick, thank you for accepting that position. After reading all the things that you're going to be doing, be a busy man. We got information from Brandon in the council packet on the grants from 21 till present. So we're basically 5 years. We've had $3,731,152 in grants over that period of time. That shows that our people are doing a great job on looking for money outside money to do the things that need to be done in our town beyond what our taxpayer funds are. So thank you, everybody that's worked on it, and I know virtually everybody in the city staff has worked on getting this stuff, information around for grants for Brandon and Patrick to work on. But it says a lot that we've received a lot of money that we didn't have. And it was, I think, Matt, you brought up, we need more outside money to get things done.
Yeah, so just real quick, not to interrupt you, but on the, do you know what the city match was on that? By chance?
On all of those grants.
Is that something, I mean, looking at that, so for somebody from the outside looking in, 3.7 sounds great, and it is, but if it only costs us $300,000, that's fantastic, right? If it costs us, $1.5 million, is 3.7, it's just a way of looking at it for the public to see it, I think. Would be nice.
I don't know those are.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Thanks.
To staff, you guys are doing a great job. Keep it up. I know it's been busy. Steve, you guys have been busy.
Busier this month.
Thank you. We appreciate it. And that's all I have.
Good. Rick?
Yeah, Steve, from what I understand, during that storm, you had a family coming down US 12, knew where our police department was, and took shelter. And that's fantastic. Being right on 12, they recognized where to go, and they were able to take shelter, and it gave them that comfort. And I'd like to thank Only, because we were down in South Madison with the fire department. And then South Walker, getting home at 3 a.m. But multiple times, Only was down there. Come down and wanted to see, we're okay, we need anything. That's saying a lot for our officers.
It's teamwork.
And we appreciate that. It was multiple times, hey, you guys good, you need anything? We're sitting on that line was down, we were trying to stop people, and he was busy too. He calls the man, so I want to thank him.
Good.
Thank you too, because it's great, Great work you guys. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Really glad to have you aboard and have with us. You're out in the public, well seen, people comment a lot about that. So thank you. And I guess that's it.
I do have one more thing I'd like to bring up, if you don't mind me jumping in. Just so you're aware that we recently had 4 firefighters pass their academy, which is 320 some hours that they volunteer their time for. And we also just picked up another firefighter that already has his 1 and 2. And we have just put on a new one who's just starting out. So the fire department has really stepped up in our recruiting, and it's brought the average age down quite a ways. So just wanted to pass that along.
Okay, I just want to thank city staff. You guys, after the storm, you guys were rocking out there trying to keep up and pick up and get things cleaned up. City's looking pretty good. Hopefully, this next one won't be as bad. Keep your fingers crossed. Patrick, congratulations. Patricia, as always, great job. Brandon, you guys make a great team here, so keep up the good work.
Matt?
Anything to say that hasn't been said already, so.
All right. Congratulations, Patrick. Brandon, good luck with your wedding coming up.
Yeah.
John, thanks for stopping in. We appreciate all feedback. Sometimes it looks negative, sometimes it looks positive, but I think you can pull positive from all feedback, so I truly appreciate that. I want to thank the two speakers we had, but they're not here, but still thank them for coming in and giving their presentations. And city staff, probably you guys too. That's all I got.
One thing out really quick.
Yes.
So I know that when I came over, I had mentioned having the schools and everything possibly include the kids for like spring cleanup. And I just want to thank Patrick personally because he really jumped on board with that, coordinated with the school and got some kids out here this last week cleaning windows and doing leaves and doing a bunch of stuff that way. And I think that was fabulous.
Yeah, I saw that. I didn't mention that, so thanks for bringing that up. And
Thank you.
I was also supposed to mention for Scott Wilbur couldn't be here tonight and he was gonna show this for the school. They wanted to make sure that it was mentioned about the bond proposal. Vote by May 6th. I think a lot of this has gone out in the mail already and there's been a lot out in the public about it. So if anybody has any questions, there's people out and about that can help get the answers. And we have some here too, available if anybody needs those. That's all.
To Matt's question,
Okay.
I came up with a rough estimate, I think it's about 350,000 we've spent on match grants.
Produce.
Thank you. That's one more. Hey, thanks a lot for helping as a secretary and all the things that you know. The historical building.
And Rick, thank you for coming. It's nice to have you here.
Yes.
Should I bring donuts or cookies?
Both.
We can give them to the police department if you. we
I have a motion.
I'll make a motion.
To adjourn.
Second.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.